The derelict discovery. The salvage vessel. Scavenger's Dream drifted through the outer reaches of the Kepler system, its sensors sweeping the void for anything valuable. Captain Sarah Chen had been running salvage operations for 15 years, but she'd never seen readings like these. The massive object ahead wasn't just debris from some old battle. It was intact, enormous, and completely alone. "Boss, you seeing this?" called out Marcus Rivera from the sensor station. The young tech's voice carried excitement mixed with confusion. "Whatever that thing is, it's putting out energy signatures I can't even classify. The computer keeps trying to categorize it as both organic and mechanical." Sarah moved to look over his shoulder at the displays. The object was easily 3 times the size of their salvage vessel, with a hull that seemed to ripple and shift even in the static scanner image. Parts of it appeared crystalline, while others looked like traditional metal alloys. The whole thing had an almost artistic quality to its design, as if someone had sculpted a warship rather than built one. "Take us in slow," Sarah ordered her pilot, David Kim, "and keep the engines ready for a quick exit. Something that size doesn't just get abandoned without a reason." As they approached, the true scale of the vessel became clear. It stretched nearly 800 meters from bow to stern, with graceful curves that defied conventional ship design. The hull showed signs of ancient battle damage, but strangely, some areas appeared to be slowly healing themselves. Tiny tendrils of metallic substance crept across blast marks like living tissue closing wounds. The 4th member of their crew, Engineer Lisa Thompson, whistled low. "Captain, I'm reading power generation from at least 12 different sources inside that thing. Some fusion, some antimatter, and some, I honestly don't know what to call it. It's like the ship is drawing energy from subspace itself." Sarah made her decision quickly. They'd found something unprecedented, and she wasn't about to let another salvage crew claim it. "Prepare for boarding. Full environmental suits and weapons. We don't know what's waiting inside." The airlock they chose seemed to recognize their presence. As they approached, patterns of light danced across its surface before it opened smoothly, despite clearly not being operated for decades or possibly centuries. Inside, the corridors were vast and seemed to shift perspective in unsettling ways. The walls contained flowing patterns of light that moved like blood through veins. Marcus ran continuous scans as they explored. "The atmosphere is actually breathable," he reported with surprise. "The ship is maintaining life support even after all this time. Temperature's a bit cool, but within human tolerance." They moved deeper into the vessel, finding chambers filled with technology that seemed to blur the line between machine and organism. Control panels grew from the walls like coral formations. Seats molded themselves to accommodate different body shapes. Everything had an organic flow to it that made traditional human engineering look primitive by comparison. In what appeared to be the command center, they found their first real clue about the ship's origins. Holographic records activated at their approach, showing tall, slender beings with elongated heads and 6 fingers on each hand. Their voices came through as musical tones that their translation software struggled to decode. They called themselves the Etherians, Lisa said, working with the translation matrix. "This ship," they called it the Synthesis. It wasn't built in a traditional sense. It was grown, shaped by their thoughts and needs. Sarah studied the recordings carefully. The Etherians seemed peaceful. Their technology focused on exploration and art rather than war. But the final recordings showed panic, fear, and ultimately abandonment. Something had driven them away from their magnificent creation. "Captain," David's voice crackled over the comm from where he'd stayed with their ship. "We've got company. 3 vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not friendly looking." Sarah and her team rushed back toward the airlock, but before they could reach their ship, the newcomers had already taken positions around both vessels. The aliens that appeared on their communication screen were everything the Etherians weren't. Thick, armored bodies with 4 arms and faces that seemed permanently fixed in expressions of aggression. They called themselves the Krathan Dominion. "Humans," the lead Krathan growled, the translation rough but understandable. "You have discovered property of the Dominion. This vessel was claimed by right of conquest 70 cycles ago. You will surrender it immediately or be destroyed." Sarah stood firm despite the obvious threat. "We found it abandoned in neutral space. By salvage law, it's ours now." The Krathan commander's expression somehow became even more hostile. "Your primitive laws mean nothing. We defeated the weak Etherians and claimed their technology. We will return in 7 of your days to take possession. If you remain, you will be eliminated." After the Crathen departed, Sarah's crew gathered in the Synthesis's command center. They knew they couldn't fight off a Dominion fleet with just their salvage vessel. But something about this ship called to them. It wasn't just valuable technology. It felt alive, waiting for someone to wake it properly. The Crathen never understood it, Lisa said, studying more of the ship's logs. They tried to force it to work, to break it to their will. But the Synthesis was designed to bond with its crew, to grow and adapt with them. The Etherians abandoned it rather than let it be corrupted. Marcus had been experimenting with one of the control interfaces. "Captain, look at this." As he placed his hand on a crystalline panel, patterns of light spread from his touch. The ship seemed to react to him differently than it had to the previous recordings of Crathen attempts. Where they had tried force, Marcus used gentle curiosity, and the ship responded with warmth. "It likes us," David said in wonder, "or at least it doesn't reject us like it did them." Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Contact Earth. Tell them we've found something that could revolutionize our understanding of technology, and tell them we're going to need backup, because we're not letting the Crathen take this ship. Over the next 3 days, the crew worked tirelessly to understand the Synthesis. Lisa discovered that the ship's consciousness wasn't programmed like a traditional AI. It was more like a living neural network that had been sleeping, waiting for compatible minds to interface with it. The Etherians had designed it to amplify the best qualities of whatever species bonded with it. Marcus managed to establish a basic communication link with the ship's consciousness. It couldn't speak in words, but it could share feelings and images. It showed them its loneliness, its rejection of the Crathen's violent nature, and surprisingly, its curiosity about humans. Where the Etherians had been purely logical and the Crathen purely aggressive, humans seemed to possess a balance that intrigued it. "It's been searching for someone like us," Marcus explained to the others. The Etherians were brilliant but too rigid in their thinking. The Crathen were strong but couldn't understand cooperation. But humans were creative, adaptable, and we worked together despite our differences. The ship finds that fascinating. Sarah knew they were running out of time. Earth's response would take days to arrive, and they had less than 4 days before the Crathen returned. But as she watched her crew work with the Synthesis, she saw something remarkable happening. The ship was beginning to wake up properly for the first time since its abandonment. Lights that had been dim for decades grew brighter. Systems that had been dormant hummed to life. "Captain," Lisa called out from the engineering section, "you need to see this. The ship's power output has increased by 300% since we arrived. It's not just repairing itself anymore. It's improving itself." David had been exploring the weapons systems which the Etherians had only installed reluctantly for defense. "These aren't just energy weapons," he reported. "There's something else entirely. They can manipulate space-time on a localized level. The Crathen never figured out how to activate them because they require a cooperative neural link between multiple operators." As Sarah stood in the command center, watching her crew bring the ancient vessel back to life, she realized they had found more than just salvage. They had found a partner, one that could teach humanity to reach beyond their current limitations. The question was whether they could forge that partnership before the Crathen returned to claim what they believed was theirs. Awakening, the Titan 3 days remained before the Crathen deadline, and the Synthesis had transformed beyond recognition. Where once dark corridors had echoed with emptiness, now rivers of light flowed through every surface. The ship wasn't just awakening. It was evolving, adapting itself to human thought patterns in ways the original builders never imagined. Lisa Thompson had discovered something remarkable in the ship's biomechanical core. The Synthesis didn't just interface with its crew. It learned from them, incorporating their problem-solving methods into its own processes. Where the Etherians had given it logic and the Crathen had tried to force obedience, humans were teaching it something entirely different: intuition and improvisation. "Watch this," Marcus said, demonstrating his latest breakthrough. He placed both hands on the neural interface panels and closed his eyes. The entire command center responded, walls shifting to display three-dimensional tactical information pulled directly from his thoughts. "I'm not controlling it. We're thinking together." Sarah had been in communication with Earth Command, but the response wasn't what she'd hoped. Admiral Foster's message was clear. "Captain Chen, while your discovery is remarkable, we cannot risk war with the Crathen Dominion. You are ordered to evacuate immediately. But Sarah's crew had other ideas. They'd spent days bonding with the synthesis, and none of them were willing to abandon it. More importantly, the ship itself had made its choice clear through the emotional impressions it shared. It had chosen humanity, seeing in them the creative spark and collaborative spirit it had been searching for. "Captain," David called from the navigation station, "the ship just showed me something. The Etherians didn't just abandon it because of the Krathen. They left a message, a hope that someone would find it who could unlock its true potential. They believed that species existed somewhere in the galaxy." Lisa had been working on integrating human technology with the ship's systems. Their fabrication units had been absorbed into the synthesis's structure, but instead of being consumed, they'd been enhanced. The ship was learning human engineering principles and combining them with its advanced capabilities. "It's incredible," Lisa explained. "Human technology is crude compared to this, but we approach problems differently. We use brute force solutions, redundancies, and workarounds that the Etherians would never consider. The ship finds our primitive methods fascinating because they work in situations where elegant solutions fail." As the deadline approached, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the ship's memory cores, he found records of weapon systems the Etherians had only theorized about but never activated. They required something the peaceful Etherians couldn't provide, the warrior's instinct combined with the diplomat's wisdom. "The Krathen have one or the other, never both," Marcus explained. "But humans, we can fight when we must and seek peace when we can. The ship recognizes this duality in us." 24 hours before the Krathen were due to return, something unexpected happened. The synthesis began to reconfigure itself, not just repairs or minor adjustments, but a complete transformation. The graceful curves of Etherian design merged with angular human aesthetics. Weapon ports that had been hidden emerged and reformed. The ship was preparing for battle, but on its own terms. Sarah made a decision that would define humanity's future among the stars. "We're not running," she announced to her crew. "If the synthesis has chosen us, then we stand with it." The crew spent the remaining hours in deep interface with the ship. Each of them contributed something unique. David's pilot instincts helped the ship understand three-dimensional combat maneuvers. Lisa's engineering knowledge showed it how to reroute power in ways the Etherians would have considered impossible. Marcus's curiosity pushed it to explore capabilities it had never accessed. And Sarah's leadership gave it something it had never had before, purpose beyond mere survival. When the Krathen fleet arrived, they found something they didn't expect. The synthesis was no longer the dormant relic they'd tried to claim. It blazed with energy, its hull rippling with patterns of light that seemed almost eager. And it wasn't alone. Sarah's distress call had been answered not by Earth's military, but by other salvage crews and independent traders who'd heard about the discovery. "Humans," the Krathen commander snarled over the communications channel. "You were warned. Surrender the vessel or be destroyed." Sarah stood in the command center, her hand on the primary interface. She could feel the ship's consciousness merged with her own, and through it the combined will of her crew. "The synthesis has chosen," she replied. "And it didn't choose you." The Krathen attacked without further warning, their weapons designed for overwhelming force. But the synthesis didn't fight like any ship they'd encountered. It bent space around incoming fire, making projectiles pass through dimensions where it didn't exist. Its weapons didn't just damage Krathen ships. They selectively disabled systems with surgical precision. More importantly, the ship was learning as it fought. Every attack the Krathen made was analyzed, understood, and countered more efficiently the next time. Human adaptability combined with Etherian technology created something neither species could have achieved alone. "Their shields operate on a rotating frequency," David observed. His consciousness merged with the ship's sensors. "If we pulse our weapons at an inverse harmonic?" The synthesis implemented his suggestion instantly, and Krathen shields began failing across their fleet. But the ship didn't destroy them. Instead, it disabled their weapons and engines, leaving them helpless but alive. This was human mercy combined with Etherian philosophy, something the Krathen couldn't understand. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the Krathen fleet was neutralized but not destroyed. Their commander's final message was one of confused fury. "This is impossible. That ship never fought this way before." "It never had humans before," Sarah replied. In the aftermath of the battle, As salvage crews and traders gathered around the synthesis, something remarkable happened. The ship began producing smaller versions of itself, seed ships that could bond with other human crews. It wasn't reproducing exactly, but sharing its knowledge, creating a new generation of living vessels that would spread among humanity. Admiral Foster's next message was considerably different from his first. Captain Chen, the United Earth government officially recognizes your crew's claim to the synthesis. We're also very interested in discussing the implications of your discovery. But Sarah and her crew had already moved beyond Earth's authority. They were something new now. Human consciousness merged with alien technology in a partnership neither species could have achieved alone. The synthesis had found its purpose, and humanity had found a path to the stars that no one could have imagined. As they departed the Kepler system, the ship shared a final message from the Etherians' records, one that had been locked until now. To those who find our greatest creation, know that you were chosen not by us but by the synthesis itself. It will make you more than you are, as you will make it more than we ever dreamed. Together, you will forge a new path among the stars. The abandoned ship had become humanity's greatest ally, not through conquest or control, but through understanding and cooperation. The Krathen had tried to dominate it and failed. Humans had chosen to partner with it and succeeded, and in that choice, both humanity and the synthesis had found their true potential. As news of the discovery spread, other derelict Etherian ships began responding to human presence. Each one different, each one waiting for the right minds to awaken it. The galaxy would never be the same. Where once humanity had been seen as primitive newcomers, they were now recognized as the inheritors of the Etherians' legacy, not through force or theft, but through the simple human ability to collaborate, adapt, and create. The synthesis had been abandoned by its creators and rejected by would-be conquerors. But in humanity, it found something neither the Etherians nor the Krathen possessed: the perfect balance of logic and creativity, strength and compassion, order and chaos. Together they would write a new chapter in galactic history,